Welcome to Her Discovered Power, the podcast where we try to provide every single good hearted woman tools and knowledge that can empower and free you from so many of the emotional aspects that impact you most, from our earliest teachings and societal implications. I'm Dave Jones with Captive Coaching and Empowerment, and this is my mission and my passion because of what I've seen happen with the women in my life, including my own mother. We're here to help you be the she that you were meant to be. Hope you follow us, hope you share us, and hope you enjoy the episode.
Well, good morning, David, and welcome back, everyone, to Her Discovered Power. You know, David, when you sent me today's topic, I found it so interesting. I didn't realize this was a thing. So, ladies, today we're going to talk about why women can attach so quickly in relationships. It can be emotionally or mentally or even spiritually. And sometimes those very red flags that we should notice actually make the attachment faster and feel stronger than it probably should. Right, David?
This is a thing. And we're talking about this topic today because in this realm of women's empowerment, I did a search and this was the number one topic that women have been asking online. It kind of surprised me that it was number one, but I was not surprised at how common it is because of how many of my good hearted women clients that I've had over the years fall into this category greatly, especially when they're coming out of the relationship. And we're going to talk about this gently today, Sherry, because attaching quickly does not mean anyone's needy or broken. And ladies, it often means that you've just been longing for acceptance. And sometimes people know how to play into that longing.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of women are listening today are going to hear themselves in this. And it's not that, we're trying to rush a relationship. It's when that you've gone, like you're saying, when you've gone so long without feeling chosen or seen, any attention or consistency can feel incredibly powerful to them.
Ladies, here's a little nugget that we're going to dig into more. And it's based on what you just said, Sherry. Recently, I had a friend talk about feeling chosen. She really wanted to feel chosen. Now, she's amazingly intelligent. She's considered very attractive. She's extremely athletic, extremely empathetic, and she spoke of being chosen. And when we were talking about it, I said to her, listen, you don't need to be chosen. You need to know that you can accept or reject. You're no longer chattel ladies for somebody else to choose. They may want you, but you get to determine if you choose them. And that's really a yellow and potentially a red flag for our good hearted women listeners. And I really have to get them to know that if they feel chosen, then there is often something we unconsciously feel is either not good enough or that us being selected gives us some type of validation. And Sherry, our society, the marketing and messaging for hundreds of years puts that concept out there that women are to be chosen. And here's something that's sometimes hard to admit. Sometimes women attach quickly, not because someone is extraordinary, but because he or she is offering the bare minimum of what she's always wanted and what she's always deserved. Maybe it's a little consistency. Maybe it's a little attention, a little softness. Sometimes it's just a little effort. And when you've been starved for those things, like you mentioned before, even crumbs feel like a feast, Sherry.
Hmm. Ouch. I mean, those bare minimums, though, they can feel very flattering in the beginning and almost like chemistry, right? I don't know how many women would even realize that this concept is behind why they feel that way.
There's so many elements that build into this, and that's why we're talking about it today. It was somewhat of an aha moment for my friend as well that I was just referencing. I'm putting on our site some of the marketing material that's been used over the last 70 years. I showed you that in a phone call you and I had a couple of weeks ago. And these were marketing materials used, ladies, by national brands that push that exact point. It's crazy how covert
Mm.
so much of the messaging has been that continues to seep into our world. One of those was Van Heusen, big clothier. That you remember that one, Sherry? That
Mhm.
with the woman sitting and kneeling, I'm sorry, kneeling at the side of the bed. The husband was in bed in his shirt and tie with his arms behind his head, and she was kneeling, handing him his platter of food. And it's just subservient, covert messaging.
And it wasn't that long ago. Those advertisements were not from that long ago.
No, no, that one was from the 60s.
Since we're talking about red flags and chemistry, I feel like can't both of those be dangerous for both of us as well as a potential partner?
Oh, they absolutely are potential issues, and can create such damage within us. And for our good-hearted ladies, I'm telling you, it's such a common thing with the women that I have worked with. And let's talk about some of those red flags. And it's not to shame anyone, Sherry.
Mhm.
And ladies that are out there, it's not to shame you either, but to protect you, those of you who attach deeply.
Mhm. Yeah, so I feel like we're not exactly attracted to the way that we're attracted to the way they make us feel, so we have to be really careful, right?
Oh,
'Cause
definitely.
it can feel like a connection, but, from my experiences, could be a strategy too.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I feel like sometimes a guy who wants to offer something quickly he'll offer the bare minimum, and if you haven't received any of that, it can feel like the maximum.
Yes, absolutely. And ladies, this goes whether or not our potential partner is a he or a she,
Mm.
because our good-hearted women fall prey to some of these from a man or from another woman. And there's a few patterns that we so often see. And one of them is something that we've seen come up, the terminology over the last couple of years, and that's love bombing. It's really disguised as openness, where he or she shares deeply, quickly, emotionally, not because they're vulnerable, but because he or she knows that vulnerability creates fast attachment in our good hearted women.
Mhm. I hear this one a lot on social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when we're talking about fast intimacy, we're talking about somebody who wants to get you in bed quickly and or get so intimate where you're bearing your entire soul. Both of those are really disguised as chemistry. He pushes closeness early. She gives long talks late at night or deep confessions. They create an emotional momentum, and it's powerful if we're not looking for it.
Yeah.
And then there are the compliments that feel spiritual instead of sincere. And sometimes they're really good at it and might even sound sincere, but they sound like something like, "You're different," or "I've never met anyone like you," or "You're exactly what I've been looking for." These kind of statements, they feel magical, but they're so often premature,
Yeah. Red flag.
right?
Mhm.
Then there's another one, future talk without present action, if you will, where they talk about trips, plans, our future, but they don't necessarily show consistency today or tomorrow and in the moment. And
Mhm.
then there's urgency. Instead of patience, they want the connection to escalate quickly, emotionally or physically, and frame slowness as rejection. That's a big one where our good hearted ladies feel like, hey, there's something potentially here, but he's pushing me. I don't want to lose him, so I need to give in.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. It's important to recognize these. I mean, someone moving quickly, it doesn't automatically mean the relationship is becoming deep. Healthy relationships are actually built on consistency and trust over time. So, if we're a woman and we're looking for acceptance, those red flags can sometimes feel like relief instead of a warning. We have to
Abs-
recognize that.
Absolutely well put. And as a short aside, but as a comparison, I'll teach my coaching clients that, if we've had years and years of emotional pain, anxiety, depression, whatever the different scenarios are, when we eliminate those and just get into peace, that peace can sometimes feel like pleasure, even though it's just the absence of pain. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does.
And I remember when you and I were coaching, I gave you that heads up like I do with every one of my coaching clients, because so often this is a similar scenario where we haven't got what we've been looking for. And so when we get a little bit of it, it seems like it's magic.
Mm.
Sherry, imagine that you've been walking around with an empty cup for years. This is an old analogy, but and you're thirsty, emotionally thirsty, let's say, but you keep giving water to someone else. Then somebody pours a couple of drops into your cup, not a full cup, not even half, just a few drops. And then suddenly you feel alive, you feel seen, you feel hopeful. But the truth is, we're not attached to him in that exact circumstance. We're attached to feeling of finally having something in our cup. Does that make sense?
Yes, and we have to recognize that that person knows exactly how much to pour in your cup to make you feel full without actually giving anything real.
That's exactly right. It's almost like fishing, where we cast the lure and reel it in slowly so that the fish follows it. And I hate to make that analogy, but I use that with my clients a lot, because as they pull back, good-hearted people, but of course, as usual, good-hearted women suffer of this more than others. They feel it retreating, so they tend to want to follow and attach.
Hmm. But so, David, women aren't attaching out of weakness. They're really attaching out of longing and hope, right?
That's the tragedy of it, in my opinion. Good-hearted women often carry a quiet longing from childhood, either because they had the sense of acceptability and the welcomeness in childhood and knew that comfort, or because unconsciously they know they lacked being accepted or feeling chosen or feeling emotionally safe and being valued without having to earn it, because we want to know that we're enough already. Whether or not they've had it in childhood or unconsciously lacked it in childhood ends up often having the same consequence. So when someone shows even a small glimpse of acceptance, her heart can move faster than her mind.
Mm. Makes me sad because it's really not that she's looking to be rescued. I mean, hope doesn't necessarily mean a weakness. They're just looking for what feels like a real connection that they've never had, right? So, longing for a connection, I think, can make red flags look like a green flag in their instance.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like you're at a stoplight, and red goes to green. That's exactly right. And the other issue that comes along with that, like you just said, is no, they're not looking for that longing out of weakness. That hope is not a negative. That hope actually is the result of being a good-hearted woman who entirely wants to find somebody else that is as good-hearted, that can share her for her, and that she can share he or she for them. You know what I mean? But here's the truth. When we're emotionally deprived, the bare minimum feels like abundance. That crumb feels like a feast. And as a heads up, ladies, someone who wants something quickly from you knows how to offer the bare minimum in such a way that it feels like a miracle, feels that magic. And we have to look out for it.
I know. It's like there's a manual on how to manipulate because they all have the same tactics. And he's not actually giving more, he's just giving it faster.
Yes. And I'm going to speak for you. We're not saying all men do that, but all manipulators is like they have the manual, right?
Yes, yes.
All men are not like
Did I say that?
that. There are plenty of good-hearted men. Unfortunately, there's plenty more that aren't. And speed is not depth. Intensity is not intimacy, ladies, and chemistry is not necessarily compatibility. It's like imagine you've been standing outside in the cold for years, Sherry. You're shivering, you're exhausted and numb, and somebody opens a door to a warm room, and you step inside for 1 minute, just 1 minute, and suddenly you feel warm again, right? Your body remembers what comfort feels like. You're not attached to the room, you're attached to the warmth.
Yeah, and they know how to turn that on. It doesn't mean that that warmth is safe or stable or really even meant for you, but it's a very small comfort.
Exactly.
So, as we're talking about that, then what do our women do? I mean, we have to slow down. What would that look like for women to slow these attachments down without really becoming guarded or shutting their heart down?
Great question. And the answer really is by asking better questions. Key is not about them, not about him, not about her, but about herself, about our good hearted woman. We have to ask that inside of herself. Does this person match my emotional depth? Do they reciprocate? Do they show up regularly and consistently? Do they take responsibility? Here's a big one. Do I feel safe with them? Not does he make me feel safe, but do I feel safe with him? Are they rushing me? Are they offering intensity instead of stability? Those are the questions.
Okay. And what if the answer is no to any of those?
Well, if the answer is no to any of those, chances are the no is the answer to all of them.
Mm.
And the attachment then becomes a choice and not a reaction as long as we're listening to those. And Sherry, here's another big question. Do they make me feel special or do they make me feel respected?
Right. That's a good one.
Because,
Mm.
right? Because, ladies, I need you all to know this. Number one, you're already special. If you're a good hearted woman, it doesn't get more special. You're already kind, considerate, compassionate. You've got the heart of a lion, and you're willing and vulnerable enough, using your strength to be vulnerable, to share and wanting to find somebody to share that with. It's wonderful if they feel you are special, but it is a huge potential red flag that every single woman needs to know and understand and embrace that if they make us feel special, it's a yellow or a red flag we need to see. Sherry, I have had so many clients who've come out of relationships that tell me he or she made me feel special. Well, here's the thing, ladies, if we feel special with them, then that in itself can often be a signal that they are providing something that either we haven't felt since childhood or that they have been providing something we unconsciously lacked in childhood. In either case, it has the potential of a big problem down the road if we feel special with them. There is a huge difference between someone feeling we are special and us feeling they make us feel special.
That's a good one. That is something really good to look out for that it's practical, right?
It's not only practical, it's absolutely emotionally protective because when we ask that question, we almost always know the answer. And we need to kind of think of attachment like a bridge, a healthy connection that builds the bridge slowly, plank by plank or brick by brick. But someone who wants fast intimacy will try to sprint across the bridge that isn't even built yet. And when you sprint across an unfinished bridge, you fall, not because you're weak, but because the bridge wasn't really real.
Hmm. It's a freeing perspective. I mean, we need more time to prove stability before giving access to your heart. I think some women blame themselves, as your analogy, for falling off the bridge instead of realizing that the bridge was never stable.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it was put up by someone else purposely as only temporary.
Mm. David, I do think there's a moment that every woman reaches, though, where she realizes she's done. She's done settling for this potential. She's done convincing herself that these crumbs are enough. And the right relationship won't require you to rush or ignore your tuition. Um, Maybe won't explain away red flags anymore. So it allows the trust to grow naturally.
Well, I think there is a moment like that, Sherry, but the problem is there's two types of women that reach that point. The first is the empowered woman who says, okay, I'm done attaching to crumbs. And the second is the woman that has been crushed so often by reaching for the crumbs and realizing there's no meal.
I see that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the second case is the good hearted woman who realizes, based on her heartache and based at and all of the circumstances that she has come to experience the pain from it, she so often ends up giving up on what she really deserves and starts to try to accept only what she can tolerate. Does that make sense?
Mm, yeah, so it makes me sad because I feel like she'll do it again, though, and I think that's what goes back to your advice on respect versus feeling special.
Yes. And that's the difference between an empowered woman and just a woman that has had a bunch of those bad experiences. It's, the empowered woman comes to that moment when she's done attaching to crumbs and she says, okay, I understand you, but I choose me. And so often we'll talk about when that empowered woman gets to that point, she stops collapsing when she doesn't find what she wants or when she realizes he does not fit her mold and her needs and her desires. She stops chasing, she stops begging, right? She stops confusing longing with compatibility. She stops mistaking intensity for intimacy. She stops accepting the bare minimum because she finally knows she deserves the whole meal. Sherry, I had a client a few years ago. She was in love with this guy, and he actually manipulated her so horribly. He literally would start saying, I don't want you. But she kept chasing. She kept feeling that if she could be what he wanted, if she could be what he sought, but she also thought that she knew what he didn't know he really wanted.
Mhm. Again, the manipulators all use the same tactics. I feel like this is so common.
It is extremely common, ladies, and unfortunately, they may use the same tactics, but they make them all look differently.
Mm,
And a woman who has fallen for a manipulator will so often fall again for another one because they make it look differently. They are so receptive and intuitive without their knowing it that they know exactly what that lady wants. They know exactly what that woman is looking for in a relationship, but they typically have very few motives and goals. Those manipulators, they typically either want to own our good hearted woman's power, or they want to get them in bed very quickly and then move on, or they want to have a servant or attract a woman who is very subservient to him. And that's kind of come along. And I'm not saying this is all of the cases. There are some empowered women that truly want to be and have a traditional old style marriage and relationship. But a lot of these trad wives, Sherry, they're manipulated into that circumstance where, okay, this is my role. This is my sole role because this is what he wants.
mm.
Ladies, You are the empowered woman, and you empowerment really means that you get to decide and determine and choose whatever type of life you want. If that is the high powered executive, fantastic. It is if it's the housewife raising a child or two or 10, that's fantastic. If it is somebody that wants to help others and volunteer, that's fantastic. Empowerment does not mean you're supposed to fit into some pigeonhole. Empowerment means you get to do and choose and believe you have the right to be whatever you truly want, not fulfilling the expectations of someone else.
Mm.
Does that make sense the way I'm saying that, Sherry?
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. And I feel like, it goes back to, I just keep going back to this because you need to feel respected versus feeling special. And that's how you will avoid this.
Yes.
You don't have to, you don't have to earn or chase a healthy love. I feel like we really deserve to meet someone who has the same depth that we're offering and actually adds value to our lives, not takes away from it.
Yes. And ladies, I know that it's difficult because unfortunately, especially over the last several years, with all of this incel and treadwives and misogynistic talk, it's really a lot more difficult to find a good-hearted man, and or a good-hearted woman. And it's a scenario where if you don't get what you deserve, Sherry, you know as well as I do, and we've talked about it before, and so many of my clients realize this. It's sometimes a heck of a lot better to not have that relationship than to be in one that is filled with pain,
Gosh.
filled with demeaning, filled with diminishment, filled with disrespect, or filled with any type of abuse, emotional, physical, or sexual.
I totally agree with that. I think women in relationships don't understand that, but when you get out of one and you have peace, it is the best.
Right? Ladies, attaching quickly does not make you weak. It makes you human. But attaching without boundaries makes you vulnerable and susceptible to harm. It really makes you prey to not only the manipulators that we have mentioned a couple of times, but also for that potential partner who does not know themselves and doesn't know how to honor boundaries. And that's not necessarily manipulator. That is somebody that is just solely about themselves and egocentric and a person that is so driven to obtain what they want that they don't understand the concept of healthy love where you can get pleasure and peace by pleasing and pleasuring your partner. Does that make sense, Sherry?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you shouldn't feel confused at all about your relationship. And I'll say it again, it should add value to your life, not take away from it.
I love how you put that. And I'm going to add one additional, or maybe a couple additional things. and the first one is, ladies, here is a huge red flag that you must not ever ignore. If you feel better when you're not with your partner, that is a red flag we must not ignore. If you have hesitancy, anxiety, frustration, or the sentiment of not looking forward to seeing your potential partner, that is a red flag. I don't care what he or she provides you. If there is not the desire, if there is pain when you see them, if you are hesitant about wanting to see them, we must honor and listen to that. Your empathy is beautiful, ladies. Your longing is human. Your heart is powerful, but your goodness needs to never cost you yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like as you were saying that too, society makes us feel like we should have a partner, but we're enough on our own. And you deserve to wait for the person that a- is for you.
It is no different, and you're so right there, Sherry. It is no different than a number of clients I've had over the years who have decided that they don't want to have children, but everybody in the world expects them to be mothers. And then so many people that have not found, and sometimes aren't even right now looking because of different things going on in their life, have not been in, are not in a relationship. And then everybody in their world says, well, when are you going to get married? When are you going to find your partner? Let me hook you up with somebody. Let me introduce you to somebody. And it's not that I'm saying that, ladies, you don't need to be open to some of those things, but it's only open to those things if that's what you seek, to please you, not to please anyone else.
Mm. I love it because we go back to the beginning of what you said. Every woman has a right to choose who's in her life, what life she has.
And to never, ever need to feel to be chosen.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
I said this recently, Sherry, to somebody, and I think you and I talked about it. I had a client that said, I want to feel chosen. And I said to her, well, you go into a store, you buy bread, you're choosing the brand, you're choosing maybe based on the price, but it's the bread that's chosen. When you buy a car, it's the car that's chosen. Ladies, you're not bread. You're not a car. You're not out there on the lot waiting and hoping to be selected. We see some of those movies back in the day, Sherry, where the poor foster kids at an adoption agency, you have adoption day, and these poor kids are sitting around hoping that one of these couples will adopt them. Ladies, this is not you. You deserve to be the ones to choose. You deserve it.
Yes, thank you, David. This is a really good perspective to take, and I appreciate you talking about this topic. And if anybody would like the worksheet that goes along with this episode, just email David at info@captivecoachingandempowerment.com. And please share this episode with any woman in your life.
Or every woman,
Yeah.
because we never know who might need to hear it, right? Thank you always, Sherry, for doing this with me. I say all the time, I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. And ladies, please, please know your worth, know your boundaries, and know what you want, and you do the choosing so that you can be the she you were meant to be.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Sherry. See you next time.